So let's start with what is the MISST project? So the MISST acronym means Multi-Sensor Improved Sea Surface Temperature Project. That kind of tells you what is this going to be about, but really the goal of this project was in its inception to improve, standardize, and distribute remote sense sea surface temperature data sets, which is a very specific but very, very broad goal. And for some of us that came sort of late to the game, this seems very obvious, but as I learned through making this presentation and learning about this project at the beginning, this was actually a daunting task. But also, this is why I'm really excited to present here, because the MISST project is very, very linked to the history of GHRSST. And so you'll see, and some of you already know that. So a little bit of background. So you probably heard about this project, GODA, the Global Ocean Data Assimilation Experiment, which one of their projects in 2001 was this pilot project called GHRSST, that it really aimed to a little bit promote better production of sea surface temperature data from remote sensing, better observations, a little bit more standardized so that it can be used, and also to define research topics that are needed to improve this product, which I think is very important. And part of this pilot project, there were projects that started in few countries, and in Europe, included the United States, and this is how the MISST project came about. This is sort of the US chapter of that GHRSST project. Again, as I say, it's funded by NASA and NOAA, but at that point, it was also funded by NOAA in the US. It's a very collaborative project. I'm just naming a few here, and as I say, I'm gonna drop some names, but there's so many people involved that it's impossible to track everybody. So thank you for those of you who have been doing a lot of work for this, but I'm sorry for the ones that I might not mention. Not that you're not valued, it's just there are too many people involved in this project. So a little bit of history about the MISST project. There are, as I say, 3 chapters. The first one started in 2004. This was the first project. It was not called MISST 1, but and it was really just trying to connect with this GHRSST pilot project. So it was MISST for GODA. The second one, there was a little bit of a gap in funding, but not in work. And this is MISST 2 from 2012 to 15, and it was focused on integrating the Ocean Observing System, EOS. And then the last one that we're still at, MISST 3, that started in 2018, and it's supposed to go all the way to next year, is MISST 4, one continued with GHRSST partnership and focus on the Arctic. So these are the 3 chapters, and I'm going to talk a little bit about all of them. So let me start with the first one. The PI, as I say, was Shell. Shell is the instigator of all this project, and we will not be here without her. But the other PIs were Gary, which I think is online, Jim Cummings, Eric Baylor, and eventually Aileen Maturi. But they were not the only people involved. Actually, there were more than 25 scientists that were partnered here. And one of the requisites of NOAA funding is to trying to bring together not just academia or government researchers, but also industry and international collaborators. So we have many people here that, as I say, I'm going to be naming through the slides. So one interesting thing that I was supposed to talk just about MISST 3, but reading through the papers of the background, I started compiling these ideas of what drive MISST and how it was organized and how still organized. And I thought that it was a little bit better presented this way. So the MISST projects have 4 components in a way. One is the collaboration that really enable or facilitate the main goals, both of GHRSST and MISST, that are standardizing, updating, producing, and distributing sea surface temperature products. And that is impossible to do without all the partners and all the very important work that is done through MISST or in associated with with GHRSST. The second part is improving SST products. And one of those is through developing new products or through research done to improve the algorithms. The third part is in situ data comparison for either validation or improving models, or just trying to understand how things are changing. And this is not only gathering data, but also collecting new data to be able to compare the data that is needed to improve these models. And then every MISST project has an area of focus in a way, in things that want to be improved or tested in. So for the MISST one, as I said in the previous slide, it was part of the GHRSST and sort of trying to work through the GHRSST group and I think at that stage, there was a lot of work in starting to standardize the data to assess or estimate the errors and try to put everything together, which again, for all of us that came a little bit later in the game, that was a given. But you guys did a great job with these first steps. In terms of improving the SST products, this has been all across the MISST projects and try to assess the uncertainties, evaluating and improving new models. And in particular, there was an interest from the beginning to blend infrared and microwave blended SST products. And that started with MISST 1, and it has continued at different stages of how this blended was done. And there has been many products out of that, not just for MISST, but for GHRSST in general. And there's been a lot of working on that, which is quite an interesting dilemma to how to do that. For the in situ comparison at the beginning, and actually it kind of lasted for a while, it was comparing with radiometers in ships to be able to validate the data and be able to do this blending. And our area of focus at the beginning, it was sort of tropical storms and hurricanes. So let me just very quickly talk about some of the outcomes of the first MISST. And the way I see it, there are also outcomes from the first years or the first maybe decade of the GHRSST project. And it's producing this standardized data sets of SST. The project has named as 9 different satellites coming out with estimations of error, ancillary information. This format that it was identical across all the GHRSST project that is called the L2P format, I guess. Also that all files will be in TDF format and then the climate forecast convention, which again, for us that we are users, these are a given right now, but I realize how much work is being going through the years. And for this, I think Jorge and Ed Armstrong here have been instrumental in following through the entire GHRSST and MISST project. So thank you to both of you. And at this point, this paper, Baron and Kara, they did a lot of the work in trying to put these things together as well and tested almost as a user, or at least an interference as a user. Another thing that came out of this, in terms of improving or producing this blended product, I say one of the big goals is merging infrared and microwave data for an SST product. But obviously there is a need to understand this, the profile or the very surface of the ocean. And this has been, for everybody in GHRSST, this is a figure, or this is the beginning of a figure that appears in many places. And this is because, as most of you know, the infrared and the microwave, they measure slightly different layers of the surface of the ocean. So there was need to validate both measurements and see how they can be blended. And for that, there was need of more research and more validation in both what is the skin temperature or the different layers temperature for both technologies, but also about the diurnal warming. And this is something that Shell and Peter Minette started with collaboration with Sandra Castro and Gary, that I think is here too, and have a few papers here with Bart and Jeremy that were doing a lot of this work at the beginning in different ways, directly on remote sensing or in taking in situ measurements to make the comparisons possible. And just a quick note, I mean, this is an application of it. This MISST one, they tried to, or well, not they tried, they did apply it to how can improve the estimation of where the hurricane paths are. And for this is very important, these mixed or these blended products. But also there were other applications that were tested, and some of those were the forecast for marine weather and making better visualization for scientists and for outreach. So there's a lot of work done kind of sideways of the basic research that was done through MISST. And something else that I think that is very important is that the collaboration with the GRIS group, it was sort of cemented through these years, through this funding, because it brought a lot together a lot of the US researchers, but not just individually, but also through their agencies. And so after that, there is a lot of collaboration, I think, championed by Shell, Peter Miner, Ed Armstrong, and Jorge Vasquez. They've been bringing this together and keeping this work alive through the years. So now MISST2, that, as I say, started in 2015, and this was kind of a focus in bringing it to more global data sets and try to integrate with the International Observation Network. Again, Shell was the PI, but now Peter Minade officially became part of it, although he was part of it from the beginning. And the Harris and the Croswell were co-PIs, but again, we have you, I mean, you recognize some names there because they were part of the MISST projects since the inception. But again, this project already had more than 30 partners. So now going back to my slide, in this case, as I said, it's in terms of collaboration, it tried to bring more global data sets and more global partnership with SST products producers. The improvement of the products is sort of the same, following the same improvement of especially a blended product, but not limited to it. And the in situ data keep doing radiometers, but in this case, they wanted to include also the global drifting buoys that are part of the IUs. And the focus, it shifted to places with high resolution needs, which are possible now with these blended SST products. And they focus on fronts, coastal areas, lakes, which I thought it was very interesting, and looking at more global products. So quickly, just the outcomes. In this figure, you see all the drifting buoys that were matched at some point to comparison with SST products, and it's a pretty map, but you can see how big the problem is to try to gather all this data and put it together. And so one of the goals of MISST and GHRSST at the same time is been putting all this data in a standardized format that can work with different platforms and different applications and across different data sets, which I think they accomplished pretty well. And again, this was totally focused on the iOS system, and we can see some of the papers that came out of it. I'm sorry, Jorge, I misspelled your name there, but Crossman, Lee, and Mike Chin have been instrumental in this part as well, working towards the Muir product, Muir SST product. And in terms of improvement, they continued with validation and models of skin temperature, which I'm thinking it proved more challenging than expected, or at least there's a lot of work to do, but they managed to put sensors, radiometers in several ships for validation, and then have cruises all around the world to do this. And so the models have improved considerably. And they also focus a lot in cloud contamination, which is a very big problem in many areas, but definitely for nearshore and areas that I do care about, like upwelling areas, it's a very important work. They continue with doing diurnal warming work, and I just named one paper there because there was a lot of work done by Karen Harris in trying to improve those models. And there was also validations of beers, which is a replacement for muddies, but I just bring it up because I just wanted to point it out that the work was not done once they standardize or validate the previous models, right? New satellites keep coming and they are trying, or GRIS and everybody in MISST are trying to make this SST as continuous as possible. So there's a lot of work done in the background around those, even if it's not directly through MISST, but it's definitely been a part of what MISST support and people that are involved in this project and in GRIS. And two points of improvement that or applications that I found very interesting for the MISST-2 project is one is that there was now work applied to lakes. I really never thought about sea surface temperature in lakes, but there was a lot of work done in this project about reviewing, checking the errors, making improvements in the algorithms. And especially since the blended infrared and microwave blended product can now receive very high resolution and give it a shot to smaller bodies of water. And the next one is marine heat waves, which I don't know if we're lucky or bad luck, but at the same time that this project was going, there was a extreme marine heat wave in the North Pacific, but affected the coast, which is always a problem with clouds, but these blended products allow us to estimate the marine heat wave at that point. And so it was one of the big applications of these new data sets that are coming up and that they are way easier to use. And then as I say, there was some gaps in funding. However, the work, it was not stopped, especially not when it relates to collaborating with GRIS. But work continued and Shell pioneered other works. She continued to work in the California Current. This is sort of when I got involved in working with Shell through that marine heatwave project. But she continued to work in the California Current and upwelling, and more interested in how do we actually measure surface data to better validate sea surface, remote sensing data, but also how do we improve the surface warming or the diurnal warming that we see in the very near surface. And so she managed to do a partnership with Saildrones, which are uncrewed vessels that are powered by wind and solar power. And she did a pioneer cruise along the California Current system and taking measurements and demonstrating that this can be used to validate satellite data. So for the final or latest chapter of MISST-3, which is the one that we're now, that was a very big part of it. So again, this project that started in 2018, Shell was again the PI, and I have been replaced by PI because Shell moved to NASA headquarters now, and so I'm just inheriting her project. But Peter Minette continued to be PI here, and in this chapter, Mike Steele, which is a expert in Arctic everything, is also a PI. But again, it's not only about the PIs. There's a lot of people involved in this project, and I mean, again, you say the same names, but also we have Saildrones people, and we have more collaborations with NOAA because you'll see that a lot of the in situ data gathering or collecting was done through or in coordination with NOAA. And so going back to this schematic, we now, in terms of collaboration, is continuing producing and updating the data, including new data sets, but also this project it's a little bit more focused on distributing in a manner that is a little bit more accessible for the users through the NASA PODAC or the NOAA NCI. The improvement continues to be an ongoing work that it just keeps going at its own pace of research. And in this time, the in situ data was in two sort of chapters. One was gathering all the Arctic existing data that has not been matched with satellite data for validation, which Mike still is the lead on that. And then on the other side, it was collecting new data through Saildrone and to be able to validate and make some comparison about Arctic data, remote sense Arctic data. And of course, this focus area is now the Arctic, and especially the near the ice, which it's been proven very interesting. So far, some of the outcomes, as I say, is keep producing the old SST product, but keep coming up with new ones and new satellites and the better blended products. So for that, we have to thank all the people at NOAA, at NASA and GPL, at Jorge, Mike, that keep working on this and making it better and keeping it up to date. They definitely have done a great job in keeping it operational and in improving the sharing of the data. And there's always challenges with that, but they have been working on the huddles every single time. As I say, they continue with their research for improving the product, right? There's been still research on skin SST, diurnal warming, clouds and fronts for high resolution. For this, Gary and Sandra have been doing a great job. And also there's been more research into climate data sets now. Now that there are a lot of products that can be put together with the same errors estimates in the same format, it's a little bit easier for more researchers to dig into this. And I'm looking at the timing, and so I don't want to forget anybody, but you can see there's a lot, like more and more people to get involved in these data sets. But of course, one of the big focus on this last MISST chapter is the Arctic. And so we have focused a lot of the same type of research and work that I'm talking about the royal we, like all the MISST people, the GRIS people know how to do, focus on the Arctic. So this is identifying data, in situ data and matchups with different satellites, comparison, validations, now obviously including the Saildrone data. That is, we did three cruises in the Arctic. The first one was in tandem with NOAA, so there's several cruises through the Saildrone in the Arctic for the summer, and all the data is available for you guys to play with. It's distributed through the NOAA, I keep saying NOAA, I apologize, NASA PODAC. And there's been a lot of work in trying to estimate the errors and uncertainties in the data close to the ice, far to the ice, pretty much everywhere around the Arctic, since there's a lot of new data to play with. And here I just wanted to show a picture of the first cruises in 2019 when they were studying the ice. And this is a picture on the bottom when the Saildrone got stuck in the ice because they were trying to get too close. Turns out that that's a little bit dangerous. And Saildrone never let us get that close. But still, work keeps going. So we have 2 more cruises. And from that, there's been a lot of work in estimating what are the accuracy of the estimates of SST relatively close to the ice. What are the estimates of surface ice coverage compared with remote sensing? Improving the ice and cloud flags in this region. There's continuing of the same diurnal warming and skin SST comparisons now in the Arctic and using Saildrone as well, which is work that is being done by Peter Minette, Mike Steele, and you have heard a talk, and I'm sure you'll hear more from Chung Ya and Wendy Tang. And in terms of application, which is sort of where I am more involved in this project other than management, that is being, now that these data sets are a little bit more estimating the error and how can we use it, Mike still have been doing a lot of work into what is driving the SST and changes, in particular changes in SST in the Arctic, how the SST is around the ice and how can we model it properly and improve those algorithms to improve SST products. We have also done other areas like upwelling, like what are these changes in SST? Now we can see it in high resolution and longer and more sustained and quality control, I guess, sea surface temperature products. What are the marine heat waves and what the different products tell us? And also, I think I want to point out that there's been, in part of this last chapter, some summary papers, like the SST decades of data that Peter Minet worked on, or the Saildrone technology that both Chiori or Shell did in the early 2020s. Those are wonderful papers to read. So just as a summary, looking back at this tree, I think this is, I mean, we're not done with MISST 3, but we can take a look at what we've been doing for the last more than a decade now, almost 2. And then one is, as I said, standardizing the metadata and producing and distributing SST data that I think has been an ongoing, a gigantic work that both MISST and GHRSST have done. The improving of the algorithms and the existing and new satellites through validation and modeling. There's been a lot of work done through that. I know that it's not completely done and maybe it's never perfectly done, but there've definitely been improvements in different areas and great work to do that. We have gathered and collect a lot of in situ data for validations, and we're trying to put all the collocations online as well. But we have used new technologies as well to be able to make better comparison with in situ data. There's been a lot of research that this is tied up with the models done before in the skin temperature, diurnal warming, coastal environments and very dynamics like upwelling, and recently more on ice zone like the Arctic. But I think the one big thing that GHRSST has supported MISST, or the other way around in a collaboration, is building capacity of many researchers in how to work together. And they have definitely, I think that has brought the SST community together in many ways, working together for so many years. And I want to point out that, again, MISST is not just the work done by the PIs, but it has been instrumental in promoting a lot of parallel and coordinated effort among all the collaborators, which I think is shared in the goals of GHRSST as well. And with that, I will stop